Hello everyone, welcome back to the stream, good to see you. So today we're going to be working on controller support some more because it's, it can use some tightening up. I'm going to be changing up all the the keybinds for it, I guess you could say, the mappings for it. Just generally add some more functionality to the game, require less clicking and moving around. So we're going to see how that goes. But, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, Alchemortis is available for wishlisting. You can also join the playtest by subscribing at Patreon. So if you subscribe at either tier, you will get access to the playtest version. And if you subscribe at the top tier here for at least 1 month, I'll send you a Steam key for the full game when it releases. But you could also subscribe at the supporter tier to get access to the playtest. You don't have to join on Patreon though to try the playtest. The playtest will be available on Monday for everyone, so that's happening in just 3 days here. So if you want to wait, you can definitely do that. You don't need to pay anything at all during development to try the game. And the other ways you could support me are by purchasing one of my Udemy courses. Those will teach you how to build complete games in the Godot engine and all that good stuff. So anyway, everything's linked below. The best thing you can do is wishlist Alchemortis if you haven't. And then, yeah, try the playtest and let me know what you think. Hello, Clickertail, welcome back. Hello, Dan, good to see you. All right, so I'll just show you this one thing before I get into the controller support. So yesterday, I spent a good chunk of the day adding this high resolution mode, as you guys saw on the stream, but I also added in a readable font mode, which changes the font to just a non-pixel font here. That changes all the headers and everything, so that is only available when you're in like high resolution mode, but this is just an accessibility thing, I guess, but also this is mostly in preparation for Chinese translation, because I don't think I'm going to be able to find a Chinese pixel font with all the characters that I would need at the pixel resolution that I need and for a reasonable price. So yeah, so we're just probably going to use a normal Chinese font for the game, and we're just going to force the high resolution and readable font options with the Chinese option, the localization option selected. But for everyone else, it's optional, right? So you could turn it on or off to your heart's content. If you have a hard time reading the pixel fonts, you could change to these new higher resolution fonts. But otherwise, you could just stay at the default experience with the beautiful pixel fonts. But yeah, that's just an option. I needed to implement that anyway, like I said, for Chinese localization purposes. So I just, obviously might as well just make it an option for everyone to use if they want to. So I spent the bulk of the day yesterday working on that. And now it's time to work on some controller support. Hello, Yurios. Welcome, good to see you. Dozy Burrito, welcome back. Ninja Link, hello, good morning. Good to see you. Mike the Mad, welcome. So I'm going to be borrowing a lot of your input suggestions, Ninja Link. I don't think I'm going to make the D-pad buttons not... I'm going to keep the D-pad buttons moving because I was thinking about it. And I was thinking, if somebody tries to, if they're going to... I could see a point where people start trying the game and they go into the game and they want to move their cursor and they press up on the D-pad and then it instantly automatically sells something. I think that's gonna be a common thing when people are trying to get used to the controls, is they'll keep accidentally selling things. So I think I'm actually going to keep I'm going to keep the D-pad as movement by default, but what I will do is all of those actions you suggested, you'll just have to hit the modifier key before you press the direction. I think that will be okay, but I don't know. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Anyway, I forgot what I was gonna do. Let's see. So I set up separate key bindings. Hello, Wulius, welcome back. So I set up separate key bindings in my action map here. Input map. So I've separated out the controller stick up and right and down and left from the directional buttons themselves. So that means that I can differentiate a little bit better. Be interested to hear from people that use a D-pad to play games. I've not used a D-pad since the days of SNES. Interesting. I mean, I don't play games with a controller that much, but whenever I needed to navigate a UI, I always use the D-pad for whatever reason. Okay, so hello, ItJoy. I think grabbing items should be done by pressing all 4 shoulder buttons. This is the most intuitive, natural, and human way of grabbing things. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good indeed. Oh, goodness. Can't argue with that logic. So, yeah, so what I want to try is So we've got the button modifiers, we've got the move board. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to try the increase and decrease combat speed first. So I just want to give that a little bit of a shot. I wonder if that should just go... Should I just put that at the level of the combat widget? Now the problem here is speed control visible? Is auto resolve hidden? Oh, this is a mess. Anyway, so I'm just gonna do one thing here, which is in ready. I want to connect to input device changed. Input device manager dot connect to input device changed on input device changed. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm only running the process methods when the connected or the applicable thing is connected. So I don't want like this combat widget to be processing like all the mouse motion inputs, for example, when a controller is not connected, right? So private void. Why is this public? Who wrote this? Private. So private void on input device changed. We'll just call update process input. This needs to be bool is controller. Let's see, update process input. Private void update process input. We're going to do set process input device manager dot is controller active. Okay, so now we can override the input method. Public override void input. So we know that this input method now is only going to be called for or when the controller is connected. Okay, so I'm just going to do something simple here. Let's see. Can I do something clever? Speed change is equal to... Do I want to do this? Maybe I should do... If... evt.isActionPressed. Game constants dot action controller left. Let's do this. If not, controller input dot has or modifier key is modifier button pressed. I have like a little, let's see, is modifier action pressed? Is action pressed action? Okay. I guess I can use that. Is modifier action pressed? Ah, this is gonna be a nightmare. I'm just thinking ahead to like rebinding. Oh boy. Because the modifier keys, I'm gonna have to write my own code to detect modifier key and then button press. Oh, that's gonna suck. That's all right though. It's called, we're gonna worry about that later. Input event EVT. If controller input, okay, action controller left, so we're gonna change speed left. We are gonna do get viewport dot set input as handled. Else if controller input is action press right. Get viewport dot set input as handled. And I actually don't know if I'm using these action names properly. I mean, I guess it's okay. I guess there's two ways of thinking about the input action names. One way of naming your input actions is just to name them after just like sort of a generic function. So like my action click left, that's what it's called, is just basically the normal action. So I probably could rename that to like action accept or something like that. So that's one way to do it. Like give your input names generic action names. Or the other way to think about it is to actually name the inputs, the input actions, in accordance with what they're actually going to do in the game. So like in this case it would be change speed down and change speed right. So I don't actually know what the best approach is. I'm just going with like, so the action controller left, this is basically just an action that maps to one key. But that's going to be maybe... It might be a little bit confusing when I go to remap actions, because then I might say, well, action controller left really just means change speed down. And so if somebody changes this to be like, I don't know, L3 or whatever, maybe that would be more confusing. Although maybe not, because it doesn't... I'm writing the code with the default action map in mind, but the way that remapping works is you would save all of their remapped keys, and then you would just overwrite those in the input map at startup, right? So I guess it doesn't really matter from an understandability or code readability purpose what the action names are, because I have to build it for the default layout anyway, and then whatever buttons end up getting remapped to whatever actions, that's just going to happen at runtime. So I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much about this, but the moral of the story is I have no idea if these action names are going to be good long term or not, but we will see. Starting a project in Godot for the first time, been fun so far. Happy coding. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Bujo, for the happy coding wishes. I hope you have a good coding session as well. Hello, Emerson. Welcome back. What's your reason for using C#? I've heard it can be faster most of the time, but GDScript is better integrated into Godot's API. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's worth really thinking about the performance at all. C# is basically not more performant than Godot for the normal use case, because there's a whole penalty associated with doing the round trip between the C# layer all the way down to the C++ layer and then back to the C# layer. So whatever performance benefits you gain by C# being quite a fast language are just completely undone by that round trip when you're interacting with the Godot API. So I wouldn't choose C# for performance reasons unless you have a very specific case where you can implement a feature that stays entirely in the C# layer. Because then, yeah, you will see real performance gains there, but the main reason is just personal preference. That's it. I like it better at the moment. Hello, the Tales of What? How you doing? Name them based on mapping, reload, fire, aim, jump. Yeah. Yeah, the thing where that can get tricky though is where, so like my controller left, right? This is actually going to do something different depending on whether the modifier key is held or not. So if I press left, it actually goes left in the UI. But if I press the modifier key, which is by default the right trigger down, and I press left, that's going to change the speed. So in that case, like one action, and there's no way in Godot's input map, like, as far as I can tell, there's no way to like attach an additional input onto this. Maybe there is though, let's see. So that's D-pad left. Yeah, like so you can have the modifier keys on keyboard. So you can define an action such that you could do like Alt left mouse button. And then that action will not actually be, or how do I want to say this? When you go to check for that action in input, it will actually check that the modifier key, like that action only gets pressed if both the modifier key and the other key are pressed as well. But as far as I'm aware, there's no way to do that on controller as well. So I have to do my own check to say, okay, is the action controller modifier pressed and the event coming in is that action, right? So now I have a situation where a single button can't really be pinned to any specific action if I'm going to support like a modifier key being pressed or a modifier button being pressed to change what that action does. So that's the thing that's a little bit confusing. How do I actually change the speed? Int 2 speed setting. Update speed, game speed manager. Oh boy. How am I going to do this? Set game speed. Well, there's a bunch of conditions here that I need to account for. Update speed. This might take all stream. So let's just do the happy path first. Private void change game. Let's do modify game speed. Int change. I did not build this game speed manager very well. Oh, I guess I made... So I have 3 speed tiers, right? 1, 2, and 3. But then I also have pause. And so it becomes a little bit tricky because I can't pause it by setting the speed tier to 0. I have to call pause explicitly. And there's a good reason for that, which is that this implements a pause locks system. So I may have multiple things that pop up on the screen that want to make sure that the game is paused, right? But I don't want it to be the case that, let's say I put 2 things on screen that both want to pause combat, but then I remove one of those items. I don't want the combat to resume after that one is removed. I want the combat to resume after all of the things that want to hold the game in a paused state. I want to only unpause or resume when all those things have left the tree or they no longer want to pause, right? So, like, it would be nice if this was just a 0 to 4 or 0 to 3 range and setting it to 0 is paused, but then I don't really have the ability of like explicitly grabbing a pause lock. I guess I could rework it a little bit. But I don't know if that's worth it right now. Because I could keep the pause lock and also support speed tier 0 being the pause. The problem is that might be confusing from a UX standpoint, because if you pause the game and then you bring up a menu that also pauses the game and then you dismiss that menu, but your combat doesn't resume, that may be confusing. Like, in order for the combat to resume, you have to manually resume it. I don't know. It's a little bit weird. So I'm just going to try to work around that for now. So var current speed tier, let's just do this. If game speed manager is equal to null, we are going to just get out of there. Okay. So now we're going to say var current speed is equal to, let's do this actually. If game speed manager dot now what in the heck? Why is this so difficult? What happens when I click set game speed, game manager.pause, set speed tier? Okay, all right, well, shoot. Speed tier is equal to game speed manager is paused 0, otherwise game speed manager dot speed tier. Okay. If change not equal to -1 and change not equal to 1, we'll just return out of that. So we'll make sure we won't accept any invalid changes just in case. Speed tier, we want to do speed tier is equal to mathf.wrap. We want to go from 0 to game speed manager.max. I don't have access to that, so whatever. If min is 0, this is equivalent to mathf.posmod. So why would I use that instead? That's much less clear. I always forget if max is inclusive or exclusive. I don't remember. Let's do speed tier plus change, double min 0, double max 3. Okay. So now we need to do if speed tier is equal to 0, we need to do game speed manager dot pause, else game speed manager dot set speed tier. Now the problem is I'm never calling resume. So this is the thing that's going to confuse the heck out of me, because I basically need to prevent, like, when I need to block this input from happening when the game speed manager is paused because something else grabbed pause. Otherwise, I'm going to be able to just unpause it with the controller. Man. All right, I got to figure this out now. You know what I could do? I might do something kind of funny. Combat summary. So I may actually split this up. So we're going to keep the pause logs. Man, this is just so unbelievably confusing. Fire the developer, whoever wrote this. This is like, this class is only 100 lines, but this is probably the worst code in the entire game. Just absolute dog water, as the streamers would say. They may use a more rude term than that, but... So I need to differentiate between something that has requested that pause remain and something that has, like, the player-induced pause. But also, I probably want to just block this input when we have something that's grabbing... Okay, all right, I think I know what to do here. So I'm going to need to split this up. Public bool is player paused. I have no clue if this is going to work. Whatever. This code is already terrible, so we'll just... If not for player, well, let's do the positive case. If for player is player paused equals true, else pause locks. If for player is player paused equals false, else that. And we're gonna want to keep that So this is emit signal paused. So this is paused. Do I need this? I could just do is player paused. I hope this doesn't break anything. If not was paused and is paused. I think is paused is actually always going to be true after this, so we'll just do that. So we'll only emit that signal once. That should work. And then combat widget. So we're going to do pause, 4-player, true. This one. Set game speed. Is this the only place where that's called? Yeah. Pause, 4-player, true. On alchemy closed. Okay. I didn't put it in my suggestions, but I was trying to figure out a way to make the item navigation a bit more intuitive with using an analog stick. The best I could come up with is using a raycast 2D going the direction of the analog stick angle to see which adjacent item it collides with. Move the focus there. I'm doing something similar. So the way that it works currently, unlock menu. So the way that works currently is I take the direction of the analog stick and then I get items within a certain cone of the direction. So let's say that I'm going from the gnome here and I press up and to the left, right? So it's not just like a straight line. It's a little bit of a cone. I think it's like 30 degrees or something. And then there's some scoring that happens. So like it will, obviously take whatever item has a border that's closest to the item that you're leaving. But the problem is that you get weird situations where there are like items inside like the negative space of certain items, right? The jellyfish here, or, like this. So like the harvestman legs. Oh, I don't have my controller plugged in. And so there are just weird situations because when your cursor is hovering over an item, it just goes to like the center of mass for the position. And so that's the visual position of your cursor, but that's not necessarily aligned to the grid either. So trying to figure out which item you should go to next, right? So like, for example, if I hit up from the jellyfish, right now the implementation, it goes to the lamb bone ring there. Now you can make an argument that maybe it should go up here, right? If I press up. But the problem is I'm trying to find like a good situation. There are certain situations where like it becomes really hard to focus an item like the lamb bone ring because of the way that it's positioned, where, the input could skip over it. Now that's less of a problem if you're using the analog stick for navigation, but if I want to preserve the 4-directional D-pad input for navigation, it becomes a lot harder then, right? So it's just a little bit tricky. I have refined it though. I worked on it a little bit last night, refining it. It feels a little bit better now, I think. I also fixed the issue where like you couldn't navigate these very well. So yeah, I don't know. It's just going to take some refining for sure. But because of the weird shape of these things and because the cursor doesn't snap to a cell, it becomes really hard to have an intuitive like movement. Like here, there's a problem. Like if I press down, it's going to the lead ingot when it should be going probably to that holy water. So yeah, I can't like select those things very easily. So yeah, it's just really hard. I don't really know what to do here. I mean, the simple thing to do, I guess, would be to say, hey, if you want to select something at a weird angle, you have to use the you have to use the analog stick, and the D-pad is just going to go to whatever straight up or down. Yeah, it's a really hard problem anyway. The other thing I was considering is, well, maybe I could just make the cursor just snap to the grid cells. That would give it like a lot of certainty in terms of where you're going to go. But then like for the large items, you're going to have to like click twice to go over them, right? Or like the skeleton dragon, you know, I'm going to have to click 3 times to go across it, right? 1, 2, 3, if I'm going cell by cell instead of item by item. And there's another element of it where it's just going to be like unintuitive to some people with the way I currently have it implemented, because like the strange man here, I'm hovering over this guy. If I press right, I guess my bias is I'm expecting it to go to the skeleton dragon, but it goes down to the tentacle here. But from a mathematical standpoint, it's like there is no obvious best choice, right? Because the tentacle and the skeleton dragon are both intersecting, well, they're equally aligned on the border of the strange man, right? So that means that, yeah, I mean, there's just like, what do I do when I press the right button? Like, which one do I choose? There's no like easy way to discern that, other than just saying, well, I personally think that it should bias towards the top right item. Now, sometimes it does go to the top right item. I think that's probably just like a... It might just be... I don't know. I think the 2 vectors that are generated in terms of like the neighbor are probably basically the same. But I'll have to look into that. So I don't know. It's a really tough problem, that's all. I'll figure it out though. Hello, Sashuma. I implemented this exact thing last week. Ended up with a pop-up manager, which upon closing one pop-up knew to give process mode when paused. Oh yeah, I mean, I already have that. It's just a matter of like coordinating the lock system. Hello, Merab. Welcome. Hello, Opacheco Dev. We're back to the controller guide. Yeah. I mean, when paused. Gotcha. Hello, Rookie Tookie. Time for a complete rewrite. No, I don't. Well, maybe. We'll see. Hello, Trist. Ship it. I feel like that's an after release patch. No, I don't think so. It needs to be really solid at release. Difficult, or default to this one, but have a modifier button that makes it go cell by cell. Maybe. Naturally, I think most people would press up and right or up and down the same time. You'd have to use a default behavior for ties like that. Why can't I do this? Yeah, the problem with the up and right is like, that's not a discrete action. So I would need to add some kind of like grace period or something to the button press to see if like another direction is going to come in. Yeah, I don't know. I hate controllers. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. It's okay. We'll get it working. Well, yeah, I do understand. Yeah. Hello, Chris Wedemeyer. Good to see you. Those two cells to the right visually aren't equal. That snake, was it, goes all the way under the original cell. Yeah, I mean, they're not visually equal. The problem is, how do I express that in terms of, like, finding a direction? So if I'm here, and I press right... I mean, I could add rules like when you've got an equal border like this, go to the larger item or something. But the problem with these rule sets is that I have to be careful not to make rules that end up with certain situations where you just can't select an item, right? Yeah, I don't know. I have to think more about this. I don't think there's really a good generic solution here. I mean, I could do something like... trying to think about this. I don't know, actually. Like, this is a good example. If I'm on the Sword of Holy Oil and I press left, it's, yeah, it's just like, which one do I go to? Obviously, the up direction makes sense. The down direction makes sense, but the left... I mean, honestly, it doesn't feel that bad right now. This is a problem, though. I can't select those ones for some reason. So I'm almost thinking, like, what if I... So if I've got an item that's bigger than 1 by 1, what I could potentially do is I could say, okay, basically if I press up, just scan like these, like both, like just scan all the way up, right? So scan both of these cells. And what I would probably, I mean, what I could potentially do is count all of the cells in the up direction that each item occupies. So for example, I press up. Incense occupies 1 of the up direction cells. Giant Harvestman occupies 4 of the up direction cells, right? Because it curves around like this. And holy water is 1, right? And then what I could do is I could say, okay, bias in favor of the items that occupy fewer cells. So that would exclude the harvestmen. And then what I could do is say, okay, now take the remaining ones, like, let's say you've got the lowest count, right? So find the item with the lowest number of cells in the up direction. And there's going to be ties, right? So like these two would be tied. At that point, I would just take the one with the higher Y value lower on the screen, right? Now the question is that good enough? So the idea being that since small cards are going to naturally take up less of the border space, I want to bias in favor of selecting them, because once you hop into this guy, then I do the check again. I would hop into this guy, and then I hop into this guy, right? So I probably don't want to go from here to here. I probably want to go from here to there. The problem is that a generic rule that's going to work in all cases, right? So if I went like right from the skeleton dragon, I would say, okay, there's that guy, and then there's the succubus. Succubus only occupies 1 cell in the right direction. The skeleton rogue occupies 2. So yeah, in this case, it would select the succubus, right? Or no, the succubus occupies 2 as well. So I would just keep going outward. That guy occupies 2. So the problem is these 3 all occupy 2 cells to the right direction of the dragon. So then it's like, yeah, there's no way to like disambiguate this in that case. So that wouldn't work. I mean, maybe it could though. The other thing to do is like maybe just a pure... I wonder if just like a pure scan would work. So if I press up, I basically just go left to right, and I just go boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? So I just start with this X value, and then I increment here, and I basically just find the first item that is occupying that space. So if I pressed right from the skeleton dragon, I'd start at the top and loop down. So it would go to this guy first, right? Where's another situation to test? Let's see. If I press up from the werewolf, it would go into the tree of Amos, right? Because it's going to check. So it'll just iterate across the X or across the Y from left to right and top to down. If I'm here and I press right, I would go... See, now the question is, what happens if there's a 1x1 item in this section, right? This is a weird shape. It doesn't have a straight border. So now it's a question of... Like, I would have to get all the items that are on a right border. Yeah, this just blows up in complexity very quickly because of the odd item shapes. This is a good one. If I press up here when I'm on this altar... No, I don't want game bar. Yeah, if I press up from the altar, like, which one do I go to? Again, like, if I biased it to go... scanning left to right and up to down, then it would always select the ancient coin when I press up. Yeah, I don't know. That's a very, very tricky thing. Very tricky indeed. Most people are going to use the visual position of the cursor to determine what combination of D-pad buttons to press. Analog sticks should work a little different, though. Some distance heuristic from the corners and center, take the smallest one, needs experimenting. I mean, I'm already doing something like that, yeah. Why don't you use virtual cursor? Because I don't want to. Welcome, diligence, humility. Personally, I would use a vector-based directional pointer. Gently push in a direction that would show a real-time cursor direction. And push further to actually move. Interesting. I think I see what you mean, but that would make like repeated presses impossible. That was one of the Ninja Link's feedback, which was if you hold the right button down, it should just scroll over. Hello, Games for Humans. Good morning to you. That's assuming a joystick. If your IDK of your issue is D-pad selection. Yes, I want to support D-pad selection as well as like stick selection. Hello, Snupbill. Welcome. Thank you for the IDR 10,000. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. What if you create a temporary cell position that is 1 by 1 wide and you just move that from card to card according to where the temporary cell is? I mean, yeah, that is an option. The problem is, like Ninja Link said, people are going to be looking at the visual position of the cursor. So if I have a temporary invisible cell that is being used for selection that is not aligned to the cursor position, then it's going to create unintuitive feeling behavior, right? So it's almost a requirement that whatever card gets selected has to be based on the direction you press from the visual position of the cursor. Make the cursor match the selected cell. The problem then is that, like for large items, it would always be in the top left cell, and I would have to enable maybe cell by cell selection. Because if I'm in the top left cell, it becomes like I can't go from top left to, well, maybe I could. But anyway, whatever you decide, I think we all agree that it needs to feel intuitive and reliable. Over engineering, I feel, could easily lead to a really bespoke solution that doesn't feel natural. I mean, this solution is going to need to be over-engineered. Like, there is no natural way to say, like, well, what's the obvious thing that should be selected when you press right from the shapeshifter? I mean, maybe the answer is shrunken head, but maybe some people say, no, I was expecting to go to the skeleton commander, right? There are better examples of that. Imagine there's a 1 by 1 item here and a 1 by 1 item here, and I'm in the middle of the Wheel of Misfortune here. When I press up, what is the obvious option that should be selected, right? Now that this is a weird part too. I mean, you could say, well, maybe up shouldn't select either of those items. Maybe it should just go straight up. But then if you press left, like you end up with a gap where you can't select this item here, right? Because it's in like a weird corner. So I agree that it needs to feel intuitive. I disagree with the point that over-engineering can be avoided, because there's so many weird situations where in order to get something feeling intuitive, I'm going to need to do a lot of checks and like heuristics and guessing. Unless, of course, I just made the cursor snap to the grid cell and just forced players to like mouse over every cell that a card occupies. So like I said, you would have to jump 3 times to go across the skeleton dragon. Can you not just give them an index and scroll would just move through that index? I mean, like, yeah, how would that work though? Like, first of all, it's a 2D grid. So just a straight up index doesn't help. Well, maybe it could. I mean, the grid is already basically the index, right? Like, they're already at defined positions in space. And they're already laid out in some kind of order. But like this example here, like what would be the next index, right? Would it be salt or would it be pumpkin golem? Maybe salt would be the next index. Yeah, I don't know. Alter is a little different. I don't think pressing up should do anything, as there's nothing upwards but our up and diagonal from the cursor. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but again, D-pad selection, unless I add like some kind of grace period so that you can do diagonal D-pad presses, which I guess I may have to do. Yeah, maybe I have to do directional D-pad. Diagonal D-pad. Good morning, Andrew Gonzalez. If the auto scroll has a delay between each movement, that can help. Yeah, that could help. Make the cursor match the select. Yeah. Last idea, pre-compute bake preferred directions for each cell. Yeah, I mean, the crux of the problem right now is that your cursor doesn't end up on a cell, or at least doesn't necessarily end up on a cell. So it's not cell-based selection right now. If it was cell-based selection, well then you don't need to pre-compute anything, right? You just say, well, if I press up, it just goes to the next cell up, and if I press down, it just goes to the next cell down, and if I press, up and to the left, then it goes to, -1, -1. Yes, the problem right now is that the selection is not cell-based. But maybe making it cell-based would work. I wonder if I should do that. I'm just worried that that's going to feel a little bit weird. Like if I have to select across the skeleton dragon to get to the next thing, it would add a lot of predictability, of course, to the thing. And if I allow holding the button with a short delay to just like scroll very quickly, that can help. Maybe that's what I have to do. Inherently navigation will be bespoke, yeah. I don't think I would mind because there are so many variations how many inputs it would take to get to a certain card. Yeah. Well, I might experiment with that. It's going to be a little bit annoying for larger cards, but it may just feel more natural to be able to go cell by cell in a grid. And if I add hold to repeat options or whatever, or I could even make it so that if you hold it, it just goes immediately down to whatever the next card down is from your current cell, right? That might work too. So like imagine I'm in the right middle cell of the skeleton dragon. Instead of pressing 3 times, I could just say, well, if you hold the direction, it's just gonna snap immediately over to this guy, right? And you can continue holding it and that will just keep snapping across that row, right? But if you want to say, go upward, you could move over a cell within the skeleton dragon and then hold up and just scan up this row, right? So I can make it so that holding the button will just immediately skip to the next card in that direction in that row or in that column. That may be the way to go. Maybe just doing grid-based selection is the way to do it. Even if that adds a few extra keystrokes sometimes, it will, number one, be more predictable, and there are quality of life things that I can do to reduce the amount of keystrokes that you need. So I don't know, maybe that's something I can do. I've been following along sporadically. Is the menu built dynamically as the card is unlocked so each person's menu will look different? The cards will be laid out the same way for everyone, but when they're not discovered yet, they're black. So you'll be, let's see, debug, ignore unlocks. So this is what your screen will look like before you've discovered everything. But the items are always in the same position. They're sorted alphabetically in this grid. So all of the A cards are around here, and all of the B cards are around here, so on and so forth, and then like the Z cards are down there. Single cell-by-cell movement with ramp movement acceleration for longer distances. Yeah. If you keep moving the cursor to center a selected cell, and you just use the joystick to aim in the direction, you could compare the closest adjacent vector. Maybe another not fun solution would be a different layout if controller input is active. I mean, that's not going to work. I mean, this screen is just a screen that I'm testing on. But the majority of the boards that you're going to be interacting with are like your inventory, right? Which is stuff that you can move around, right? So like this is going to be constantly shifting based on where you're moving things. Sort by shape. Yeah, I mean, that would work in that menu. The problem is that menu is just like, it's just a good test case because it's a giant board with all kinds of configurations. So it's a good place to test the controller configuration, but we do need a generic solution because there's all these different boards. And, you know, with the boosters as well. Like, these are just randomly generated. I mean, these could be placed in a more controller-friendly way for sure. But the player boards are completely dynamic, so you can't really force any sort of ordering on those. Love your videos, helps me a lot for my project, and I would like to know, what is your VS Code theme? It's Dracula. Welcome, Bearless. Good to see you. I feel like it's sorted by... If it's sorted by size, the scroll would be too long. Yeah. Cell-by-cell solution would be too complicated to whip together a few experiments. I think I'm going to toss together an input experiment to test out quickly, because now this really got me curious. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, it's going to be a little bit harder in my implementation. I'm going to have to rip out a ton of stuff, but we'll give that a shot. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want to see, I kind of, okay. My input handling is not working at all for this. Oh, I'm not calling modify game speed. That's right. And I also need to call update process input. Okay. Let me see if I can get this to work. And then maybe we'll do some experimentation with the grid by grid movement. What if you were on a cell of a card, you press right to go to the rightmost active cell of that card still, and then you can press right again to leave that card? Yeah, we could do that. I mean, well, that might be good. I don't know, we'll have to see. Oops. Oh, this is not working at all. Oh boy. Hello, Shirley. Thank you for the $10. It's going right into my McDonald's fund. As always. Thank you, thank you. Everyone say hello to my wonderful wife, Shirley. So I like the skeleton dragon as an example. You're on the top left of that card, you press right, end up on the top right of that card. The problem is, what happens if there's a 1x1 item in the middle of the skeleton dragon that you want to select? If you skip over to the right side, the right corner, you have to take a roundabout way to selecting that. Which, you know, that may be okay. I'm not saying that's necessarily a problem. It's just, it's one of the situations that you have to think about, I think. What are you trying to do exactly? You're trying to get controller support to work with a grid of items that all have irregular shapes. I mean, maybe irregular is not the right word because they all follow a grid, but they don't have to like they don't even have to have like rectangular outlines. Like they could have crosses and L's and whatnot. Anyway, let's see what happens. So open this up. Speed tier equals 0. Why is it going to oh, that makes sense. And then I do this. Yeah, so this is wrong. So that paused. Speed tier 1. Why is that not changing? Oh, I probably need to, I need to set this up differently. Okay, let's do this. I don't know. I'm probably breaking the heck out of this thing. If there's a 1x2 card next to an O-shaped card, and then you go into the bottom of the 1x2 card, then you left, you go to the O-shaped card, and the left again inside of the card. Maybe if you know the size of the next card you're going to, you can calculate the center and put the cursor there. So the problem is not with cursor positioning. The problem is deciding which card to focus next based on the direction that you've input. If I just do it based off of the centers of the cards, then I will have a vector that points, for example, from the center of this lead ingot to the center of this beast claw, and then from the center of this lead ingot to the center of this one. And so the question is, when I provide an up input, which one do I choose? Now I could say, well, choose the shorter one, but the problem is I'm also drawing a vector from the center here to the center there, right? And so now it's not just a matter of like which one has the lowest distance, it's also a matter of which one is the most aligned to the input that you provided. And so that's kind of the approach that is working right now, where you press up, it creates vectors from the centers or from the focus points. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it gets all the items in a cone in the direction that you pressed. And then it looks at all of the vectors pointing from the focus center of your item to the focus centers of the other items. And then it does a series of things, like it checks the direction, but it also checks how well aligned it is. And that's just like heuristic stuff. So it will, it will discard a vector that is very well aligned, but is too long, right? And it will maybe accept a vector that is not so well aligned, but is really close, like really short. You know what I mean? So it's like there's like a balancing act going on, which is probably the reason why this doesn't feel intuitive, is because it's not. So that is the approach that I'm looking to get away from, I think, because I just don't think there's any way to make that predictable and feel good. So I'm thinking more and more, maybe I should just do cell by cell based selection. Because I really don't think, like, even with all the options that have been discussed, I don't think there's a way to get it to 100% where you press something and it always selects the things that you intended to press. And I think that's never going to happen, just because of the way the focus, like the way that it's using a visual focus point rather than like a rock solid focus point, if that makes sense. I just don't think it's possible for every possible orientation of items in your inventory board. I don't know if it's going to be possible to have like a heuristic approach like that, which always selects the item that you intended to select. I think there's always going to be an element of frustration there. So we could go to the other extreme and just make it completely and utterly predictable by doing cell by cell movement, and then introduce some quality of life features to make that a little bit less painful, particularly when you're traversing over larger items, right? So that is something that I definitely want to try. And now it's not working. Okay, I'm so done with this. I don't even want to work on this speed control thing anymore. Why is this? Oh, I can't even... What the fudge? I don't even want to work on this anymore. Okay. Okay, we'll make a note to fix that. Man, that speed manager, it's just awful. It's just terrible. I probably need to rewrite that entirely. It's okay. Just get rid of, well, yeah, this is just not, I think I just broke this entirely. Let's see. No, that works there. Oh wait, is it working? Why is it working now? Okay, well, also the wrapping is exclusive, so let's fix that. My suggestion, fall back to the cell-by-cell movement and then iterate on the small quality of life improvements. Yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. Then with that being reliable, if you choose to experiment with later, at least that would work still. Yeah. I mean, I think I've done plenty of experimentation with like the heuristic approach, and it's just, yeah, it's just not, it's not working. That rotation also doesn't make sense. I should fix that. It's rotating. It should be rotating the shortest way possible. Like when I press left, it's rotating around the wrong way. That should be relatively simple to address, but it looks like this speed control is working now. It's just a little bit confusing to know what happened when it rotates all the other way. See, it's like doing a full rotation when I'm just going to the left by one. So we'll fix that, but it looks like this is working now. So I'll test that more later, but what Kanban app is that? That is Obsidian, the Obsidian app with the Kanban plugin. So you implement diagonal inputs. Could you just project a cone of 30 degrees going out in a direction for the distance of half the item size and calculate a combination of which is closest and which item the cone encompasses the most of? Could you better figure out which direction to move to using your current system? So we go out in the direction that you pressed, diagonal, half the item's size. Calculate a combination of which is closest and which item the cone encompasses the most of. So I think, I'm not sure about that, but let me just point out maybe one situation where that may not work intuitively. I just messed all this up. Hold on. I'm just going to, like I said, I don't know if this is going to be a problem, but this is a situation where I don't know if that's going to work intuitively. Hold on a second. Debug, ignore unlocks. Here we go. Thank you, Games for Humans. I appreciate that. Hello, V. Welcome. Okay. So if I go to unlocks here, so if we look at that suggestion, so we've got the Harvestman case where there's an item here, but then it's wrapped by the same item on both sides. So if I do a diagonal vector going up this way with a cone of 30 degrees, I guess it is true that the incense would be covered more by that cone, but maybe not. Like, it depends, I guess, on how you measure how much of the item the cone covers. If it's just by whole cells, then the giant harvestman is in that direction more than the incense, right? But then, of course, you could bring in the direction as a heuristic and say, well, the harvestman's root is also like way out here, right? So like I said, I don't know if that approach would present a problem for that situation specifically, but that's just like an unknown. I'm not sure. Hello, Straight Pointer. Welcome. All right, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and when I come back, I'm going to try my best to move to like a grid-based cell selection. But we'll see. Anyway, BRB in just 3 minutes, and we'll continue on. Alrighty. Now I have to go digging through all of this complex code and figure out, you know what? I'm honestly tempted to input device manager, find grab, so handle controller direction. So we've got handle controller direction, grab focus and direction, find best focus and direction, get focus navigator route. So the thing about this is I've got two different controller direction finding schemes now. We want grid-based controller selection now, but we also want to keep the heuristic approach for all of the rest of the UI. So it actually is the case that there actually isn't an all-in-one solution for this anymore, because UI selection is not grid aligned. And what I mean by that is, like, if you look at the main menu here, these are not aligned to a grid, right? So we have to use a heuristic selection for these. There's no other way to do it except, you know, I could go in and manually define like the focus neighbors for these things, which could work, but I think the heuristic approach will work fine for UI elements because they're more spaced out. It's easier to determine, like, for example, if I press right from the Discord, it should probably go to this one always because it's like to the right of it. Like you could almost flatten this out into like a horizontal line and just say, well, like, yeah, if you press right from here, you go here. And if you press right from there, you go there. And if you press right from there, you go there. And if you press right from there, you go there, right? So it doesn't need to be that complex because these are spaced out. You don't need as fine control over it. And there's lots of UI like that in the game. But for the boards, we need to hijack how that works. And we have these focus navigators now. And the board is the only thing that uses a focus navigator. But basically what the focus navigator is well, I register handlers. So handlers are basically just functions that need to return a focus navigation result. But the way that we determine whether a control falls in the purview of a focus navigation handler is we basically just do like an ancestor check. Yeah, so the way that it works, if I look at my board, so the board in here is registering a focus navigator. So board focus navigator dot find in direction. Here's my find in direction, yada, yada. And it unregisters a focus navigator. So the way that this find focus and direction works is that if there's a navigator route for the control that is actively focused, then we defer or we pipe the next neighbor finding into the focus navigator handler. So yeah, so that's basically the way it works, but we could probably simplify a lot of this. Let's see. Board focus navigator, find best focus and direction. So I think what I would do in here then And then there's like focus groups as well. It's like, yeah. How are you? I'm doing well. How are you doing, Monkey Software? Robin Johansson, thank you for the sponsor membership. That's very much appreciated. Thank you. It's very generous of you. Thank you, thank you. You well of Godot knowledge, you. I mean, I don't feel like it at this moment. I'm also very tired for some reason. I must not have slept well last night. But we will not use that as an excuse. Yeah, this thing is just ballooned in complexity because of all this garbage. I'm almost like it's going to be a pain in the rear, but if I'm going to have a programmatic cell walking for boards, then I wonder if it would just be in my best interest to just manually define all the focus neighbors for the rest of the UI. That's going to be really annoying because there's a lot of UI interactions, but I mean, I don't think I need to do that. Maybe I don't need to do that. I don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I think generally speaking, this is not in the playtest version. I've improved the controller handling for the UI elements themselves. Like, I think selecting these map items feels very natural to me. Like, there are very few situations in the map where it does something that I'm not expecting it to do. Selecting like the artifacts and stuff works just fine. Going through the menus like this works great. So I maybe don't need to like go scorched earth on everything. This one doesn't work that well, but I think that's because, yeah, this focus route is just different, but oh, I guess that's not working quite that well, but that's all right. I think I can fix the little UI interactions pretty easily. I think the unlock tree may need some work. Actually, maybe not. It seems to be working just fine. Yeah, so I think whatever UI oddities outside of the boards exist are probably easily fixable. Well, the other nice thing too is that since I'm not trying to come up with a generic solution that works for UI and boards at the same time anymore, then I can really refine how the focus finding works in the general case. So maybe I shouldn't be so worried about it. But anyway. All right, so board focus navigator. So what I am going to want to do, anchor card, anchor cell. So we already have an anchor cell in here. I might just redo all this. Oh, maybe this isn't going to work. The other thing I have to think about is the cursor position. I almost have to start with the cursor position. You'll figure it out. I need a picture to show you. I'll put it in Discord. Okay. Sounds good. So would it be reasonable get focus navigator root? Yeah, this is going to be a nightmare. I don't really want to do an ancestor walk for everything. Or every frame, I mean. So basically, when I'm focused on an item, I need to snap it to a cell. Right now, it's not able to return that cell. All right, well, I'm just going to break stuff and then we'll figure that out later. Oh, but this is just a handler too. I actually don't think this focus navigation handler is workable. I think what I might have to do is probably create a new class, which is something like, yeah, something like focus. I mean, I could call the class focus navigation handler or something like that. And I instantiate a version of that class which just provides the generic default functionality. And then I create a separate version of the class which defines the functionality for each board. So the idea is kind of follow the same pattern. The board would instantiate that class. And then in the focus manager, I would handle that. So this find best focus and direction. Do I even need to do that though? Man, I don't know. Sent, I'll take a look. Let's see. I'm just taking a look at the Discord here. Yeah, I mean, I don't think so the problem is not that the joystick is not precise. The problem is I want to support navigation with the D-pad. Maybe that's a wrong decision, but I think typically games... I mean, is that how games typically work? They support moving around in the UI with both D-pad and analog stick? Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to budge on that requirement. Well, the thing is, like... I guess the confusion is, like, my game is all UI, right? Like, the combat board is a UI. Maybe that's a distinction without a difference. But I think, I mean, it is a UI, right? Like, you need to focus on items. You need to be able to drag items around. It's not like... And it's also grid aligned, too, which just kind of makes you think that cardinal direction should work. I don't have any other devices either. Like, I don't have a Nintendo Switch, and I don't have a Steam Deck. So I don't really know. Like, I guess I just don't know. I don't know what players are going to naturally reach for. I'm looking at the Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, I mean, I just don't have any idea. Supporting the D-pad is a really smart decision. It opens up way more options for players and platforms. That's the thing that I'm concerned about. Like, yeah, I just... I don't know. I don't know. Why is this so hard? I don't understand why this is so difficult. You could use the grid navigation for D-pad and the other method for joystick. I could. Hello, the tales of what? I don't know, maybe you were already in the stream. I'm a firm believer in allowing for D-pad use. Okay, Donut King. I think it's a good decision. I mean, maybe I'll regret it later, but I'm just going to treat that as a hard requirement for now. Collapsing the D-pad and the joystick into one control scheme could be why it's difficult to solve right now. The problem is, I mean, that's just even more complexity, right? Because then, okay, so now I've got the normal UI navigation, but then the UI navigation behavior needs to change when we're in the context of a board. But then inside of the context of the board, the navigation logic needs to change based on what kind of input we're receiving, which is definitely possible. It's just a question of like, do I want to have all that extra complexity, or do I want to just reduce it down to grid-based movement? I mean, I can, like, obviously support, like, diagonal movement if you provide input with the joystick, right? So the goal is to make it grid-based movement that works really well with just the 4 cardinal directions of the D-pad, but also if you provide joystick input that's along a diagonal to make that work on the grid as well. Right, so you go, like if you press up and left, you move 2 cells, right? You go up 1 and left 1. So I'm planning on doing that. So it should still feel pretty nice. Like you shouldn't be locked to just the 4. You should have 8 directions essentially with a controller. So that is definitely something that I'm going to do. No GMTK this year? No, unfortunately. I'm in the boat of them being treated differently. I would like to do GMTK, but next year, I guess. I have to make controller support good for all of you guys. Okay, I'm like pretty much stuck on this though, so I am, I guess we'll just pause the controller stuff there. Let's just do something a little bit more brainless and fun. Cancel. Let's just like make some new content or something. I'm not able to think through this at the moment. So let's just do something fun, and I'll work on the controller support this afternoon. Make projected inner abilities count for purposes of bleed, ability, or heal. Okay, well that's not exactly content, but Werewolf show. Oh, there's a lot of quality of life things here, actually. Show currently active modifiers in the pause menu. Ooh, that would be a fun one. Try to merge left and right adjacent to reduce wordiness. Well, okay, so we can either do new content or we could do quality of life stuff. A lot of modern D-pad supports native diagonals as well. I'm working on that focus control experimentation space, and I'll share it on Discord later. I wonder if Godot supports diagonals. Let's see. No, I can't get like a single input off of that, so That would be just really complex because then I have to introduce some kind of delay and tweak that so I can listen for like a second input. Anyway, just want to say thank you for the videos you make. Just started learning game dev and your videos have been helping me a lot to understand things. Oh, you're welcome. Glad to hear that. And welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Content is always a W for everyone. Yeah, let's just do some content. I don't know. Maybe art will go a little bit better for me than the controller stuff. I might just strip all the controller stuff down to bare bones and just like basically restart. I think that's what I'll do. I'll just strip it down to the stuff that I know works. I'll remove all the additional complexity that's been added, and then I'll just start from there. So I'm just going to read through my ability ideas here. Actually, let me look at the Alchemortis suggestions channel and see what new content has been suggested there. Suggestions. A random ability will not execute during next execution for corrupted ability. Let's see. Ooh. I have an idea for a corrupted ability. Corrupted ability. Something like this item. I don't know how to word this, but basically the idea of the corrupted ability is like this item. Let's see. This item is not considered adjacent to anything. Ooh, that's an evil one. I like that one. This item is not considered adjacent to any other item. Oh boy, that's a fun one, yeah. So the question is, what would I do for that one? Like, if that item has the corrupted ability and it has other abilities that are... So the way that I'm intending this is that it is not included in the queries of other items. So if it's next to an item that has an adjacent bonus, it is not counted in that other item's adjacency check. But if the item with this corrupted ability itself has abilities that look for adjacencies, that would still work, right? So it's just that this item with this corrupted ability cannot be included in any other items like adjacent abilities. Make one for the tags too. Oh, like tag querying. Corrupted ability. This item. Maybe I'll just say this item has no tags. Or... I mean, I could do, like, I could cheat and I could do a bunch of versions. This item cannot have the weapon tag, right? Something like that. But I do that for every single different tag. So, like, this item cannot have the weapon tag. This item cannot have the alchemical tag. That's like 5 new free corrupted abilities right there, right? So, that's a good one, though. We've been coming up with ways to ruin people's day, yeah. I kind of want to do some art, though. So, let's see. I'll go back to the suggestions channel here. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys want to see me make those corrupted abilities? What do you think? Corrupted abilities, or do you want to see something with art? Jack had a really good reagent idea, which is that to guarantee a corrupted ability from a reagent. Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to do Ungi Bungi's. We need to do Ungi Bungi's wedding ring. Yeah, let's do that. I have no idea what this artifact would do, but we gotta implement the romance arc finally. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. I have an idea for how I want to do the art for this. Whether I'm going to be able to successfully do it is another question. What a combination of words, romance at last. Dealer's choice. Okay, artifacts.asprite. Here we go. So I kind of want to do a ring that is... My goal for release is to fill this entire texture atlas with artifacts. I don't know if I'm going to reach that goal, but that means that we're at like half of the artifacts of the final game. I've got a lot of work to do. So let me think about this. Oh, this is going to be difficult. This is going to really challenge my spatial abilities here. But let me think about this. Well, so what I kind of want to do, can I do this with my wedding ring? Let's see if this works. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, yeah. So I kind of want to do... Oh, you can't. Wait. Okay, the mirrored perspective. Okay, I kind of want to do the ring at like that kind of perspective, right? So you can like see the front part, but the inner back part as well. So we're gonna see how that works. But basically the way I have a reference right here. So I basically want like a really narrow inner oval, which is the negative space. So we'll just do a circle. We'll do a really narrow, probably not that narrow. So something like this. This is the negative space, so I'll just fill that in. And then what we're gonna want is, let me see, can I just cheat this and do something like this? Oh, I gotta be careful not to go too close to the edge though. Let's shrink this a little bit. So obviously I need to round this out, but is it smart to do symmetry? I don't think so. Oh, this is still too tall. Yeah, I actually don't think I want to do symmetry here. So this needs to be more rounded. So let's, turn off the symmetry, please. Thank you. So we kind of go around. It needs to narrow at the top though, right? So we kind of see like the thickness of it at the top. It comes out this way. So we can see like the full front part of it, and then it narrows at the bottom again. Yeah, so something like that, right? Okay, we're starting to get the shape down. And then this, we don't want to go out this way, right? That would be incorrect. We want to bring it in this way, I think. Yeah, like this. Oh, and now it kind of looks like it could be either perspective now. Kind of interesting. Okay, well that ended up being simpler than I thought. So now just for the sake of knowing what is the light side and what's the dark side, let's just cut this off here. Yes. Right? So something like that. Maybe I want to... Do I want to make this top part a little bit taller? No, I actually don't think so. This... I almost feel like this needs to be widened a little bit. Yeah. Okay, I think the shape is good. So now we just need to shade it up, which is the hard part because if I'm trying to make it look like a gold ring, it's going to be a little bit difficult to do that. But let's darken this. So this inner part needs to be light. Maybe we'll use red for this color. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be the hardest part, is just figuring out how to represent this. Because if I do, like if I fill this in with, actually maybe that's okay. I think I need to probably create a stronger separation here though. And if I fill this one in with yellow. Yeah, that looks better. I think the problem I have with that is that because this is white, I don't really have any room to do much else on this side, but maybe that's okay. I think it's getting close. Yeah, I think it's getting close. I just need to do like, would it help to add some texture like that? Ooh, it kind of does. Would it be better to use green here? Oh, maybe that's better. I mean, it doesn't look like gold anymore, but it doesn't look like gold anymore, though. Would it be a problem if I used orange on this side as well, but then just kind of like did something like this? Would that be okay? That doesn't look too good, actually. Almost feel like I need something following the curvature of the ring. Yeah, I would need to do something like that, and then maybe... Yeah, I mean, it's just hard, right? Let's see. I don't think it looks that great being pure orange either. Let's see. I think maybe I just need to do... No, that doesn't look right either, does it? Would it help to do this? I think if I did that, I'd have to remove. Now, see, the problem with that is that it makes it look like that's inset now. Something like that might work. Now we're just back to mostly white, though. Mostly white with some like stripes of orange in here. Actually, that doesn't look terrible. I have to be really careful though with the red because the red makes it seem like it's inset. And honestly, this edge should probably be white. No. I actually think I probably need to step this side down maybe. So if I take this shading, so we're gonna do this, 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 and this. Shading. Okay, maybe that's okay. Okay, actually, I think this is gonna work. Oh, I'm still in shading mode. Turn that off. Okay. I gotta be careful with the dark pixels. feel like the outer rim on the back side of the ring should be white as well. The ring, the cast it in the fire, time for game to once again. Actually looks pretty good. Thank you, Nerd Chomp. I mean, I think that looks okay. I think maybe I'm gonna take your suggestion though. Maybe not white, but like maybe the rim needs to be... Okay, hold on a second. Before I go destroying everything. Before I go destroying everything, let me commit that, or stage it rather. Okay. I'm just gonna, let's just go back to the basics here. Maybe that works better. Maybe not. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. That makes it look, yeah, if I put dark pixels there, it makes it look kind of bad. Oh, that actually kind of looks good if I extend this out a little bit. Ah, it's maybe too much though. Actually, that looks pretty good. Well, I think it looks decent, right? I don't think it looks that bad. A continuous color along the inner front edge and outer back edge to show it's the same circular edge around the ring. Right, yeah. I guess I can do Something like that. Maybe extend the white over the top part of the ring to show it flattening out at the top more. Seems like you're going in circles with this ring. All right, well. I don't know, something about that inner... If it's just purely solid, it doesn't look that great, in my opinion. But I think that's probably good. I don't know. I might just say quit while I'm ahead. I think it looks decent enough. I do think this looks better than what you had before. Okay, good. All right, we'll keep this then. It's probably not perfect. In fact, I know it's not perfect, but... we'll just keep it like that for now. Alrighty. Please tell me that I left enough space. I did. Okay. Is it centered? That's 5. Oh no, it's not centered. 3. What the fudge? Okay, it doesn't need to be perfect, I guess. We'll just put it there. Outline it. All right, I think it's respectable. I like the inner rim light. Okay, good. We're going round and round with this one. So now we got to do the next part, which is we got to figure out what this artifact is actually going to do. I mean, I think that the obvious thing to do would be to give it some kind of bonus, like if you have 2 items of the same type adjacent to each other or something. So if you do something like I'm thinking like if you have 2 items of the same type, something happens. Like those things get some ability. So like if you've got 2 skeleton warriors that are next to each other, they gain some kind of bonus. I mean, I could make it like a fire item. There's not a whole lot of fire related things. Right? We could do something like that. Okay, artifact. Let's do this. Create. Artifact creation tool. Wedding ring. Create. Okay, wedding ring. When exactly 2 of the same item are adjacent to each other, the first ability of each item gains a sworn modifier. Oh, okay, swarm would be good. You don't like fire for this item? I was thinking, yeah, I guess we do need more swarm items for sure. The problem is, I actually don't know if I can do that from a technical perspective. Let me think. I don't think I can replace an ability with Swarm. That would have to be done through alchemy. I think I could just add a Swarm ability, though. It is interesting because it allows the Swarm ability to consistently change through alchemy. Yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't know. I don't know how I'd do that from a technical perspective, because I don't currently have... Yeah, I just currently don't have support for that anywhere in the system where I can modify an existing ability outside of the alchemy system. I mean, we could turn this into a... We could turn this into an alchemy item when two items of the same type are alchemized together. You add Swarm to a random one. The problem with that, though, then becomes, like, you could just create a lot of Swarm abilities that way. Yeah, the Swarm idea is cool. It's just I don't have a way of supporting that outside of the alchemy system. Like, I can't add Swarm to an ability safely. Because what I'd essentially need to do is I need to say, okay, what's the first ability? I would need to somehow mark that ability as, like, do not execute this one. I'd have to duplicate the ability, add the Swarm modifier to it, and then add it to the item. Which I guess is possible. I mean, I could try that. Do I have a way of ignoring abilities? I think I do, actually. Let's look at the Boatman. Add execution blocked ability. The other thing, like, there's a clarity problem here too, which is that if it says add Swarm to the first ability, what if the first ability is passive and it can't be swarmed? I guess we just do the first ability that can be swarmed. But then it's like, is that going to be clear, right? Took a random ability from the same adjacent item and execute it. Take a random ability and execute that. Yeah, we could do that. I think that should be possible. Okay. Add ability filter, filter, get abilities. Private bool filter. Base card, base card. I think the artifact context comes first. One problem here is that I actually don't. I mean, I could just do return is owned by player. Private composed ability. Let's do create ability. We'll figure all this stuff out in a second. Composed ability is equal to new composed ability. Oops. Okay. Public, or not public, private base composed ability. Get abilities, return composed ability dot execute. What am I doing? Composed ability dot duplicate. Card data provider is equal to new card data provider. Query target provider is equal to new, or query target provider dot create options dot query directions dot is equal to board inventory component query directions dot adjacent. Options dot custom filter is equal to card dot card definition resource dot ID is equal to card data provider dot base card dot card definition resource dot ID. Card data provider query target provider. Generic ability with result is equal to new generic ability with result. Let's do options dot limit is equal to 1. Options dot order by random equals true. Context. Okay, so what I wanted to do is card dot get all combat. No, I want to do get natural composed abilities. What? I gotta select just the abilities that I know are gonna exist. Let's see. Get base composed abilities. That's what I want. Where X is not I. Non-combat ability. Let's do dot any. Guess we'll do this check first. Yeah, that should work. Okay. If query target provider dot get value is equal to 0, actually, we don't need to do that. For each var target in query target provider dot get cached targets, we're going to say var abilities is equal to this target dot get base composed abilities dot any. No, this needs to be dot where to list. If abilities dot count is equal to 0, we're just going to continue. Okay, var random ability is equal to abilities mathutil.rng.rand I range 0 to abilities dot count -1 dot duplicate list base composed abilities to add to execution. New execution result, composed abilities to add to execution, abilities to add to execution. Okay, and then we do generic ability with result. Internal null. Hello, Cake Hug, welcome. Hello, Asymmetrics, welcome back. All right, so the wedding ring. How do I want to word this? Adjacent items. Maybe I'll do like matching adjacent items. Like I don't know how to describe like what does matching mean. How do I word this? Are you wanting this to filter on minion cards only or all items? All items. So it's basically like if you have a duplicate of an item, the way that it's supposed to work is you have, let's say you have 2 skeleton warriors that are adjacent to each other. They will execute a random ability from the adjacent ones. If that makes sense. But I have no idea how to word this. Like, what am I going to do to make this clear how it's working? If an item has an adjacent item of the same name, maybe. Execute one random ability on that item. Something like that. If an item has an adjacent item of the same name, execute one random ability on that item. Yeah, adjacent items this way. Oh, we think alike. Or we could simplify this. Adjacent items of the same name execute one random ability. Actually, maybe the way I had it worded was better. If an item has an adjacent item of the same name, execute one random ability on the adjacent item. Execute one random ability from the adjacent item. Right? If an item has an adjacent item of the same name, execute one random ability from the adjacent item. I mean, that's not really that descriptive because it's like, well, when does it execute? But I guess we'll just assume that it happens during the turn. Now the thing is, this is not going to show an ability, so this needs to be is hidden true. The reason why I'm not going to be able to show an ability is because during the filter stage, I actually don't know what the adjacent items are. I mean, I guess I could maybe get that information, but I don't know. It's going to be really hard to tell when this is actually taking effect. I guess I'm going to have to add some kind of filter in here. Like, I need to know at this point in time if there is an adjacent item with the same name. But let's just see if this even works to start. Oops. Okay, project settings, general, debug, enable test player artifacts, wedding ring. Oh, I should probably turn on the training dummy as well. And skip menu. Goodness gracious. All right. Project settings, training dummy, skip menu, suppress tutorial, ignore save file. All right, 2 skeleton warriors. Let's see. So they should both deal 4 damage twice. Yep, look at that. Haha. 4 4s. So ideally I would be able to show like when the bonus is taking effect, but I actually don't have a way of doing that. Object reference not set to an instance of object. Why? Well, let's just launch it. What's triggering the activation? Is it going to happen every turn? Yeah, every turn. So it's the item that's triggering the activation. How do you have those project settings? You can just add custom settings to the projects. If you add more items as a compound, it should, yeah. It should. I need to build the translations too, but let's see. I want to know why this is breaking. Wait, why is it not breaking anymore? Are these old? Okay, clear. Stop. We're going to build translations. So it should compound, yes. What? Oh, it's the... Oh. The card data provider. Ah, son of a biscuit. All right, I have a way of fixing this. ROM abilities. Well. Okay, var generic non-combat ability is equal to generic non-combat composed ability dot from abilities card data provider. This is a little hack, but basically I can make the card data provider a passive ability in here. Generic non-combat ability. So that way it's always up to date. Because the card is not going to change. Like the ability, this card data is not going to change until this ability ends up on a different item. So that should work. Add item, skeleton warrior. Hopefully I don't see any more errors. So you can see that it's highlighting. I should probably fix that. Oh, I guess that's not going to be as easy to fix as I thought. All right, I'll just list it as a quality of life thing. Or a bug, rather. All right, let's see if this does six fours. We should see 6 fours. Bang. Yeah. Probably come up with a different name for this too. But it is working. We see 6 fours there, which means each one is executing the 4 damage twice. Now I gotta figure out if I can find a way to actually show ability on items. Requires doing adjacency filtering in artifact or modifying the ability hidden state based on query target. I think I could do that. Let me think about that. I think I could do that. I would need an ability that could pass in the composed ability, which is kind of weird, but so basically the problem is I'm defining the ability here, but it has no knowledge of itself. So because this is a factory, like a constructor function kind of deal, unless I just like injected the reference to the ability in here, but I think I probably want to do something like the card data provider. Does this execution context have the executing ability? It doesn't. Yeah, so I just need to add like a reference to the ability somewhere, and then I would need to check that in here. So I'd probably move the query target provider into the generic non-combat ability as well. Oh no, I can't do that, can I? I would just create a new query target provider, check if there's at least one adjacent item that matches these filters, and then I can modify the hidden state of this ability based on that result. Ring of Unity, Ring of Synchrony. I'm gonna think about that for sure. But anyway, I'm getting very hungry now, so I'm gonna go get some lunch. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll finish up the wedding ring after I eat lunch, and then I'll push an update to the playtest so you all can play with it. So yeah, we'll add that new piece of content, and then after I do that, I will just be working on the controller stuff all afternoon probably, which is going to be a bucket load of fun. But anyway, thank you all for watching. You can wishlist Alchemortis on Steam if you're interested. First time here, thanks, man. All right, thank you for joining. Thank you, Clickertail. So yeah, wishlist Alchemortis on Steam if you're interested. You can also join the playtest, which is running right now for Patreon members only. So if you go to Patreon and you join, you'll get a key to join the playtest. The playtest will be live for everyone, though, starting on Monday, the 27th. So we're only 3 days away. But if you want to support the channel and get access to the playtest immediately, Patreon is the way to do it. Otherwise, you can wait till Monday to try the game. Join the Discord to provide your feedback, all that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Otherwise, or not otherwise. Anyway, whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye-bye.